I never thought my life would change so drastically in just 10 weeks. I met my first wife in college. We were both studying business, and everything seemed perfect back then. After dating for 3 years, we got married in a small ceremony. Life was good, and we had our future planned out. I always wanted to join the Air Force. It wasn't a secret. I told her about this dream on our 3rd date. She said she supported me, and even after we got married, she encouraged me to pursue it. When I finally got accepted into the training program, I was thrilled. It was a 12-week course in Texas, and though we'd never been apart for so long, I thought we could handle it. The day I left, things felt different. She kept holding on to me at the airport, crying and asking me not to go. I reminded her it was just 12 weeks, but something had changed in her eyes. I brushed it off as normal separation anxiety and boarded my flight. The first few weeks of training were intense. We were allowed to use our phones during free time, which wasn't much, but I always made sure to check for messages from her. That's when I noticed the pattern. Some nights there would be no messages at all. When I called, she'd act surprised, saying she didn't know we could use phones during training. This confused me because I had specifically told her about the phone rules before leaving. There were exactly 4 nights when she didn't respond to any of my messages. Each time, she called the next morning with some excuse. Once it was because she was helping her friend move. Another time she said she fell asleep early, and sometimes she'd just say she was too emotional and missed me too much to talk. After training, I came back home excited to start our new life together. We moved into base housing, and for a while, everything seemed perfect. But then I started noticing changes. She was always on her phone. The same person who didn't know how to reach me during training was now glued to her screen. I tried not to be suspicious, but something felt off. One morning, she told me she had scheduled a doctor's appointment. When I asked why, she said she might be pregnant. I should have been overjoyed, but my mind immediately started doing the math. During training, they kept us so busy that we had a joke about not even having time to sleep, let alone call home. That's what made those 4 silent nights stand out even more. At the doctor's office, they did an ultrasound. The technician smiled and said, "Congratulations, you're about 7 weeks along." My heart stopped. 7 weeks. I was still in Texas 7 weeks ago, surrounded by drill instructors and obstacle courses. I looked at my wife, and for the first time since I'd known her, she couldn't meet my eyes. I walked out to the car, leaving her inside. When she finally came out, her face was red from crying. I didn't need to ask. I just stated the fact that I was in training when this baby was conceived. She broke down immediately, confirming what I already knew. I told her to get out of my car. She tried to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. I drove off, leaving her in the parking lot. Her mother showed up at our house later that day, banging on the door. I refused to let them in, speaking only through the doorbell camera. When I explained why I knew the baby couldn't be mine, her mother's face changed. She went from defending her daughter to complete shock, watching as her daughter admitted to everything right there on our front porch. I didn't want anything to do with her after that day. The divorce process was quick. I had clear evidence, and she didn't fight it. The DNA test just confirmed what we already knew. I wasn't the father. I threw myself into my Air Force work, taking every assignment that would keep me busy and away from our old town. My friends tried to set me up on dates, but I wasn't ready. The trust one had built over those years was gone, and I couldn't imagine opening myself up to someone else. My buddy Mike kept telling me I needed to get out more, but I focused on my career instead. I volunteered for overseas assignments, worked extra shifts, and spent my free time at the gym. 2 years passed this way. I heard through mutual friends that my ex had her baby, a boy, and was dating someone new. I blocked anyone who tried to give me updates about her life. I didn't want to know, and it didn't matter anymore. Then came the assignment that changed everything. The Air Force sent me to Montana to help set up a new communication system at a small base. That's where I met my current wife. She worked at the local veterinary clinic that treated military working dogs. Unlike my ex, who needed constant attention and validation, she was confident and independent. Our first conversation wasn't even about ourselves. We talked about a Belgian Malinois that had injured its paw during training. She knew more about military working dogs than I did, and she didn't try to impress me or anyone else. She wore simple clothes, no makeup, and had this calm way about her that made me feel at peace. We started dating slowly. I was hesitant at first, but she understood. She had her own farm outside of town, handed down from her grandparents. She raised horses and grew most of her own food. It was a completely different life from what I knew before. No social media, no constant need for entertainment, just honest work and simple living. One evening, as we were fixing a fence on her property, she told me about her own past. She'd been engaged before, but her fiancé wanted her to sell the farm and move to the city. She chose the farm, and I understood why. There was something real about this life, something you could touch and see and build with your own hands. I started spending more time at the farm, learning about agriculture and animal care. The Air Force Base was only an hour away, so I drive out whenever I had free time. The more time I spent there, the more I realized this was the life I wanted. My friends back home couldn't understand it. They'd ask why I was dating a farm girl when I could be dating someone more exciting, but they didn't get it. After what I'd been through, I didn't want exciting. I wanted real. We got married in her barn, with hay bales as seats and her horses watching from their stalls. No fancy decoration, no expensive dress, just us and our closest friends and family. After the ceremony, we all ate food that had been grown right there on the farm. I was finally happy again, really happy. We decided to expand the farm, adding more animals and trying new crops. I learned about irrigation systems and soil quality. My wife taught me how to deliver a calf and how to predict weather patterns by watching the sky. It was so different from my old life, but it felt right. Then, just as we were settling into our new life together, I got a call from an old friend. He told me my ex was pregnant again, her third child with her second boyfriend. Part of me felt sorry for her, but mostly I felt grateful. If she hadn't done what she did, I might never have found this life, this peace. My wife and I were also expecting our first child. Unlike last time, there was no doubt, no fear, just joy. We spent our evenings planning how to baby-proof the farm and talking about which animals would be good for a child to grow up around. My wife wanted our kid to learn responsibility by helping with farm chores, just like she did growing up. A few months ago, I got another update about my ex that I didn't ask for. Mike called to tell me she was expecting her fourth child, this time with some guy she'd been dating for just 6 months. Apparently, he was in his 40s and wanted an instant family, so he let her and all her kids move in with him. Mike thought I'd find it funny, but I just felt nothing. That part of my life was so far away now. It was like hearing about a stranger. My life is different now. I wake up early every morning to help with the farm work before heading to my civilian job. I left the Air Force last year. The farm needed more attention, and I was ready for a change. Now I work in communications for a local company, and I'm home every night to help with the evening chores. My wife is showing now, 6 months along. We converted one of the small storage rooms into a nursery, painting it ourselves. She doesn't want any fancy baby shower or gender reveal party. Instead, we're using that money to build a small playground near the vegetable garden, where our child can play while we work. Last week, I was fixing the tractor when I found my old phone in a box of stuff from my military days. Looking through it, I found pictures from my first marriage. The fancy restaurants, the shopping trips, the constant selfies. It all seemed so empty now. My current wife walked by, covered in dirt from planting new tomatoes, and asked what I was looking at. When I told her, she just smiled and said, "That life brought you here, so it served its purpose." She was right. Everything that happened led me to this place. Now, instead of worrying about social media likes or what other people think, I worry about whether we'll get enough rain for the crops and if the new calf is getting enough milk. These are real problems, things that matter. We're expecting our baby in the fall, right after harvest season. My wife is still working as hard as ever, though I try to get her to rest more. She says her grandmother worked in the fields until the day she gave birth, and being active is good for the baby. Still, I do all the heavy lifting now, and she focuses on the vegetable garden and the smaller animals. Sometimes I think about how different this baby's life will be from those of my ex's children. Our child will grow up knowing the value of hard work, understanding where food comes from, and learning to care for animals. They'll know the satisfaction of eating vegetables they helped grow, and the responsibility of having living things depend on them. The farm is doing well. We just added a new greenhouse, and our organic produce is popular at the local market. My wife wants to start a program teaching local kids about farming, and I think it's a great idea. We're building something real here, something that will last. Yesterday, I got a text from another old friend saying my ex and her new boyfriend are having problems already. He's overwhelmed by all the kids and their relationship is rocky. I just deleted the message. That's not my life anymore, and those aren't my problems. My wife and I sat on our porch last night, watching the sunset over our fields. She was talking about putting in an irrigation system for the north field next spring, and I was thinking about how complete my life feels now. No drama, no lies, just honest work and real love. That's the thing about life. Sometimes the worst things that happen to you end up leading you to the best places. If my ex hadn't cheated, I might still be living that shallow life, never knowing what I was missing. Instead, I'm here, watching our crops grow, preparing for our baby, and living a life that feels true. I don't hate my ex anymore. I actually want to thank her. Her betrayal forced me to change my life completely, and that change brought me exactly where I needed to be. Sometimes the worst storms lead you to the clearest skies. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.